Hello there everyone. Welcome back to my channel Exploring Africa View. We bring you amazing content about Africa. Today we will be talking about all Britain colonized countries in Africa. We publish new videos every day. Please do well to like, share and subscribe for more amazing content. Let's get right into it. It's no secret that during the 17th and 18th centuries, during the scramble years of Africa, Europeans came in contact with the native settlers. Interaction started as a minor trade and then evolved into colonization and control for territories and natural resources. The British Empire colonized a significant number of countries during these scramble years, specifically during the 19th and early 20th centuries. The British Empire was the largest in human history, with a large portion of this territory consisted of British colonies in Africa. Britain controlled much of the continent of Africa for nearly a century. British colonialism in Africa was driven by economic interests, strategic consideration. Though most of the countries were not yet a recognized nation until after colonization. Here's a list of all countries colonized by the British Empire. 1. Nigeria. Nigeria, a country in the western part of Africa, formerly a colony with different ethnic groups, first encountered the Europeans during 1885. British rule started in 1861. First occupying Lagos in the southwestern part of the country. Nigeria was made a colony in 1914, consisting of the northern and southern protectorates. Britain exploited Nigeria's resources, especially palm oil and later petroleum. The British merged diverse ethnic groups to form to one colony. Nationalist movements led by Nnamdi Azikiwe and others pushed for independence. Nigeria gained independence on October 1, 1960. And officially became a republic in 1963. 2. Ghana, formerly Gold Coast, this country is located in the western part of Africa. Colonization started 1874, although the Portuguese and Dutch had come in contact with the Gold Coast area. However, the British took major control of the colony. Ghana, formerly the Gold Coast and Crown Colony, was a major exporter of cocoa and gold for the British Empire. They were the first African country to gain independence in 1957. 3. Egypt. Before colonization from Britain was part of the Ottoman Empire but under local rule by Muhammad Ali and his descendant. This historic and ancient country in the northern part of Africa was colonized in 1882 after Britain intervened in a nationalist uprising. Though nominally Ottoman, Britain held real power. Formerly a protectorate in 1914. Britain occupied Egypt to control the Suez Canal, a vital route to India. Egypt was effectively ruled by Britain until 1952. 4. Sudan. Anglo-Egyptian Sudan was a condominium of the United Kingdom and Egypt between 1899 to 1956. Most territory of present-day South Sudan and Sudan legal sovereignty and administration were shared between both Egypt and the United Kingdom. But in practice the structure of the condominium ensured effective British control over Sudan, with Egypt having limited local power and influence. However, Sudan gained independence in 1956. 5. Uganda. Before pre-colonial Uganda was home to a powerful kingdom called Buganda. British rule made it a protectorate in 1894. The British governed indirectly through local kings and chiefs. Cash crops like cotton and coffee became central of colonial economy in Uganda. Resistance existed but was often localized. Uganda gained independence in 1962. 6. Kenya. The colony and protectorate of Kenya, commonly known as British Kenya, was part of the British Empire from 1920 until 1963. Before colonial rules, Kenya was made up different ethnic groups, notably Maasai and Kikuyu. It was firstly a protectorate in 1895, then a colony in 1920. Land was seized from Africans for white settlers. The Mau Mau uprising from 1952 to 1960 was a significant anti-colonial rebellion, pushing Kenya to gain independence in 1963. 7. The Gambia colony and protectorate was the British colonial administration of the Gambia from 1821 to 1965. Part of the British Empire in the new imperialism era. The colony was the immediate area surrounding Bathurst, now Banjul, and the protectorate was the inland territory situated around the Gambia River, which was declared in 1894. Gambia was basically the smallest country on mainland Africa. Colonial economy focused on peanut and groundnuts for export, the country gained its independence in 1965. 8. Tanzania, mainland Tanganyika and Zanzibar. Tanganyika and Zanzibar were two different colonies, now modern-day Tanzania. Tanganyika came under British control after World War I. Before colonization, the area that would become Tanganyika was home to a number of indigenous groups, such as the Bantu-speaking peoples, including the Hihi, Zarimo, and Nyamwezi. The coastal region was influenced by Arab traders, particularly in Zanzibar, and later, by European explorers. The region became known as the Mandated Territory of Tanganyika, and it was administered by the British from 1919. The British used a policy of indirect rule, where they governed through local leaders rather than direct control. Zanzibar remained a separate British protectorate until the two territories were unified in 1964. 9. Malawi, formerly Nyasaland, was a British protectorate in Africa that was established in 1907 when the former British Central Africa Protectorate changed its name. Between 1953 and 1963, Nyasaland was part of the Federation of Rhodesia and Nyasaland. After the federation was dissolved, Nyasaland became independent from Britain on July 6, 1964, and was renamed Malawi. 10. Botswana, formerly Bechuanaland. On March 31, 1885, Britain declared the Bechuanaland Protectorate, which included land north of the Malopo River, modern Botswana. Britain practiced indirect rule through local chiefs and tribal authorities, especially powerful figures like 3 Sebel I and Bathoan I. The resident commissioner British official was based in Mafeking in South Africa, not in Bechuanaland itself, which highlighted the colony's low strategic and economic priority to the British. Bechuanaland was seen as a buffer zone between Boer territories and German Southwest Africa and Namibia. The British invested little in infrastructure, education, or industry. The territory remained rural, underdeveloped, and poor, with most men working as migrant laborers in South African mines. On September 30, 1966, Bechuanaland became independent as the Republic of Botswana. 11. Lesotho, formerly Basutoland. In 1868, Britain made Basutoland a protectorate. From 1871 to 1884, it was administered by the Cape Colony, but Basotho resisted colonial rule, especially during the Gun War 1880 to 1881. In 1884, Britain took direct control, making it a crown colony, governed separately from South Africa. The British ruled indirectly through traditional chiefs. They invested little in infrastructure or development. Missionary schools raised literacy, and many Basotho men worked in South African mines. On October 4, 1966, Basutoland gained independence as the Kingdom of Lesotho. 12. Eswatini, formerly Swaziland. In 1903, Swaziland became a British protectorate. It was not annexed into South Africa, but administered from Pretoria under the British High Commissioner for Southern Africa. Swaziland maintained its monarchy, but real power was held by British officials. Swaziland was governed under a dual system, colonial administration and Swazi customary law. By the 1950s, global decolonization movements reached Swaziland. In 1960, British allowed gradual constitutional development. On September 6, 1968, Swaziland became independent from Britain as the Kingdom of Swaziland. 13. Zambia, formerly Northern Rhodesia. Before colonization, the area that is now Zambia was inhabited by various ethnic groups, including the Bemba, Lozi, Tonga, Chua, and Ngoni peoples. These societies had established kingdoms or chiefdoms with trade routes connecting them to the Indian Ocean and Central African interior. In the 1880s, British interests in the region were driven by Cecil Rhodes and his British South Africa Company BSAC. The company received a royal charter in 1889 to administer territories in southern Africa. Rhodes sought mineral wealth, especially copper, and territory for the British Empire. Through treaties and military force, the BSAC gained control over the area north of the Zambezi River. In 1911, the BSAC administered territories of northwestern Rhodesia and northeastern Rhodesia were merged to form Northern Rhodesia. Initially, the BSAC ruled directly, but in 1924, administrative control passed to the British Colonial Office, and northern Rhodesia officially became a British protectorate. The British focused on extracting mineral resources, particularly copper from the Copperbelt region. This made northern Rhodesia one of the richest mineral areas in Africa. European settlers received privileges, while Africans were excluded from meaningful political or economic power. Africans were drawn into the mining economy, often under harsh conditions and for low wages. Zambia became an independent nation on October 24, 1964, with Kenneth Kaunda as its first president. 14 Zimbabwe, formerly Southern Rhodesia. In 1890, British settlers occupied the territory and founded Fort Salisbury, now Harare, marking the start of colonial occupation. The region was named Southern Rhodesia after Cecil Rhodes. 1923 Southern Rhodesia became a self-governing British colony after settlers rejected becoming part of the Union of South Africa. April 18, 1980 Zimbabwe officially gained independence from Britain. 15 Cyrenaica, Libya. Cyrenaica is the eastern coastal region of Libya, historically centered around the city of Benghazi. It was one of the three main regions of Libya, along with Tripolitania West and Fezzan Southwest. During World War II, the Allies, especially Britain, defeated Axis forces in North Africa. In 1943, Britain took military control of Cyrenaica and Tripolitania, while France controlled Fezzan. From 1943 to 1951, Cyrenaica was under British military administration, but not annexed. During this time, Britain supported the return of the Senussi royal family, particularly Idris al-Senussi, as a potential future ruler. With international pressure, especially from the UN, Libya was granted independence as a unified kingdom on December 24, 1951. 16 South Sudan. South Sudan was not a separate British colony but was part of the Anglo-Egyptian Sudan, a condominium jointly ruled by Britain and Egypt from 1899 to 1956. However, during this period, Britain administered southern Sudan, now South Sudan, very differently from the north, which helped lay the foundations for later conflict and eventual separation. South Sudan is largely Nilotic and African in identity, while North Sudan has more Arab and Islamic cultural influences. After defeating the Mahdiist state in 1898, Britain and Egypt established the Anglo-Egyptian Condominium in 1899. Though Egypt was a nominal partner, Britain held real power, and Sudan was effectively a British colony. The South was administered very differently from the North. Britain imposed a closed district ordinance, limiting contact between the North and South. Arabic and Islam were discouraged in the South. Instead, English, Christianity, and missionary schools were promoted. Britain treated southern Sudan almost as a separate entity. Some officials even considered integrating it with British East Africa. After decades of war and a peace agreement in 2005, a referendum was held in 2011. On July 9, 2011, South Sudan became the world's newest independent country, separating from Sudan. 17 South Africa. Before European colonization, South Africa was home to San and Khoikhoi, the earliest inhabitants, Bantu-speaking groups like the Zulu, Xhosa, Sotho, and others, who had established organized kingdoms and societies. The Dutch East India Company VOC established a supply station at Cape of Good Hope in 1652. Dutch settlers, later called Boers or Afrikaners, spread inland, creating tensions with indigenous peoples. Britain first occupied the Cape Colony in 1795, to prevent French control during the Napoleonic Wars. The British in 1807 abolished the slave trade. They encouraged English speakers and introduced British laws, schools, and cultures. Conflicts erupted between British authorities and Boers over governance and African land. The Great Trek occurred during the 1830s to 1840s. Thousands of Boers migrated inland to escape British rule. They founded independent Boer republic called Transvaal and Orange Free State. These republics clashed with African kingdoms, especially the Zulu against Britain. In 1879, Britain defeated the powerful Zulu kingdom and incorporated its lands. The First Anglo-Boer War occurred from 1880 to 1881. Boers resisted British annexation of Transvaal and won. The Second Anglo-Boer War started shortly from 1899 to 1902. Britain defeated the Boers using brutal tactics including scorched earth and concentration camps. In 1902, Boer Republic surrendered to Britain. In 1910, Britain merged the Cape Colony, Natal, Transvaal, and Orange Free State into the Union of South Africa, a self-governing dominion like Canada or Australia. Power was given almost exclusively to the white minority. Indigenous Africans, Coloreds, and Indians were denied political rights. 1961, South Africa became a republic, cutting formal ties with Britain. 18, northern part of Somalia, British Somaliland, was a British protectorate in the Horn of Africa. In the 1800s, Britain wanted to protect trade routes to India via the Suez Canal. The northern Somali coast was important for coaling stations and as a food supply, including livestock, for the British port of Aden in modern Yemen. Through treaties with Somali clans starting in 1884, Britain established a protectorate, not a colony. Somali leaders remained nominally in charge, but under British supervision. On June 26, 1960, British Somaliland became independent as the State of Somaliland. Just 5 days later, on July 1, 1960, it voluntarily united with the newly independent Italian Somaliland to form the Somali Republic, modern Somalia.